Today I am going to be talking about a hypothetical maid who was hired to clean, but instead of cleaning, decided to do all kinds of things that made a mess of the place. Why will I be talking about such a hypothetical maid? Because she is necessary to illustrate a concept that is very relevant to something else that is not hypothetical at all. If you wonder what the f I am talking about, I will explain in just a moment. Hello, Internet. This is Sophia, the Red Angel. Let us suppose that you hired a maid. What would you expect her to do in exchange for her paycheck? Why, of course, you would expect her to, well, clean. After all, that is what maids are for. Now, let us suppose that she did not clean, even though that is what she is supposedly hired to do. Let us take this scenario one step further and assume that not only she is not cleaning, but she is turning over trash cans and doing other things that make a mess of your place. So not only she is not cleaning, she is even doing the opposite of cleaning. What would you do then? Well, you would fire her, of course. But now let us suppose that you do not have the authority to take on yourself the decision to fire her. Let us suppose that in order to fire her, you have to get approval from a board of people that you do not control. And let us assume that the people on that board are, well, for whatever reason, difficult to convince that she ought to be fired. What would you do then? Well, you would probably do two things. For one, you would continue lobbying the people on the board to allow you to fire the maid who is not doing her job, but doing the opposite. In the meantime, however, seeing as you are stuck with that maid, you would still be pleading with her to not only stop making messes in the place, but to actually clean as she is supposed to be doing. Would it be in the least bit hypocritical of you to, on one hand, be trying to fire her, yet on the other hand, pleading for her to do her job? Of course not. Trying to fire someone who is not doing their job is perfectly reasonable, and so is trying to get them to do their job for as long as they are still taking a paycheck for supposedly doing so. There is no contradiction here at all, and no hypocrisy. Why not? Because of two very simple facts. Number one, as long as she is not doing her job and or she is doing the opposite of her job, it is perfectly reasonable to call for her to be fired. Number two, until such time as she is fired, it is perfectly reasonable to demand that she do what she is being paid to do. Demanding what you are entitled to demand under one of these facts does not forfeit your right under the other one of these facts. It just doesn't work that way, and I think that it is obvious. So, why should any of this be any different if you just fill in the blanks differently? If instead of talking about a maid, we are talking about the police, and instead of cleaning, we are talking about protecting and serving. And if making a mess of the place is the opposite of cleaning, then what would be the equivalent opposite of protecting and serving be? Well, harassing and practicing brutality on minority communities would definitely fit that bill. And since we are now talking about accountability on a departmental level rather than discussing an individual employee, the equivalent of firing would be, well, defunding. Granted, when I first heard the expression defund the police, I was not on board, but that was just until I learned what the expression actually means. I would discuss that in more detail, except that that is really a matter for another video. Anywho, for a very long time, this country, arguably for far longer than any of us have been alive, police have failed to provide adequate protection for minority communities, especially communities of African descent. Instead, they are disproportionately harassed and disproportionately targeted with police violence, up to and including being murdered by police. Now, such high rates of police brutality would be unacceptable even if they did not disproportionately fall on some communities more than others. And if we have learned jack from the parable of the Maid, that would already be sufficient grounds for firing, or in this case we would say defunding the police. But the disproportionate targeting of minority communities is definitely an extra charge against them. However, when Black Lives Matter protested against the police decision to allow Kyle Rittenhouse to walk away unhindered after having shot 3 BLM protesters, 2 of them fatally, I actually heard some people say that they should not expect better because they are trying to get the police defunded. One classical example is this video that apparently went viral for a while on TikTok before it was taken down.
So I come in this morning and we're informed there's going to be a protest to defund the police. Well, that's fine. I like protests. Except for they requested a police presence, for their safety at the Defund Police event. I do not.
That in that video is Sam Lopez, a member of the Tacoma, Washington Police Department. Nice that he finds it so amusing that these people want his department to do its actual job of protecting and serving. Because though they are demanding that his department be defunded for not doing its job, for the time being, they have not been defunded yet, so they are still on society's payroll. So in case anyone has trouble keeping up, this non-hypothetical situation is really as simple as the hypothetical situation with the Maid that I used to illustrate this concept. And that is, number 1, the police are being a blight on minority communities rather than protecting and serving them. And therefore, those communities are very reasonable for wanting them to be defunded. And number 2, though they are demanding that the police be defunded, they haven't been defunded yet. And as such, they still have their job to do. So therefore, these people are also fully within reason to demand that the police protect and serve them. It really is that simple. And you might be thinking, hey, this guy may be a but hey, that's just him expressing his opinion. But this is not just any opinion. This is the opinion that because a particular community protests against abuses by the police, because they are asserting that that abuse is unacceptable, and because they are demanding what is perfectly reasonable to do since nothing else is able to put a stop to the abuse, that means that they are no longer entitled to the protection of the police. Not even the woefully inadequate protection that they were already getting. Do you really think that opinions of this nature don't get translated into actions? If you really think that, then tell me this. Why, when Kyle Rittenhouse shot 3 Black Lives Matter protesters, 2 of them fatally, did the police not arrest him on the spot? Granted, this Sam Lopez was not personally involved in the intolerable failure to act in the case of Kyle Rittenhouse, as that took place in Kenosha, Wisconsin, which is a good 30 hours drive from Tacoma, Washington, according to Google Maps when last I checked. However, I would not be surprised if the police officers who were involved in that failure to act held the same attitude as Mr. Lopez, and if that had something to do with why they did jack. Of course, there is a serious possibility that the general unwillingness by people in power to protect communities of color and those who advocate on their behalf may have had something to do with it as well. But sometimes there can be more than one factor involved in something like this. Of course, I am no longer able to find Sam Lopez's viral video on his own TikTok page. For some reason or another, it appears as though it was removed, possibly by him, but I do not have any way, at least not as far as I know, to confirm or to refute that possibility. I do, however, know that in one of his more recent videos, he stands there in a cowboy hat with loud music and the following text, and I quote, "My followers, why don't you wear your police emoji uniform?" And beneath that, there's the hashtag, I got banned. What? He got banned? By who? Those terrible leftists? Well, he is not very specific in that video who banned him or why. However, it turns out the Tacoma Police Department has a document specifying its professional standards, and that document has a part which reads as follows, and I quote, "Officers, when not working within the scope of a department assignment, but while maintaining themselves as representatives of the department and or using department equipment or uniforms, shall not, without specific permission from the chief of police, address public gatherings, lecture, appear on radio or television, prepare articles for publication, act as correspondent to a newspaper or periodical, release or divulge investigative information or any other matters of the department." So from this, I am gathering that apparently the Tacoma Police Department is hesitant to grant this guy permission to wear his uniform and sit in a police vehicle while recording a video in which he suggests that the police department somehow should not be obligated to protect people who are holding it accountable for things that it does wrong. The big question is, though, is this because they find such a notion to be reprehensible, which it is, or is it because they just feel uneasy about one of their own saying that up front in front of the whole internet. In time, I am guessing, their actions will answer that question. If it is truly the reprehensible idea itself that they are uncomfortable with, as opposed to someone saying it out loud, then I would expect that they will not put up with anything similar to the Kyle Rittenhouse incident happening in Tacoma. But as for whether or not it is us leftists who banned Lopez from wearing his police uniform on TikTok, I find that highly unlikely, because the Tacoma Police Department apparently does not let off the hook officers who take to social media in support of cases that we leftist social justice warriors are more sympathetic to. That is correct. According to the July the 2nd article in the News Tribune, which, from what I understand, is Tacoma's local newspaper, an article which, by the way, you will find a link to in this video's YouTube video description area, Lopez was only one of 3 officers who were under investigation. One of the other 2 was Helen Staben, who seems to have come under fire on account of videos that she made in opposition to the thin blue line flag stickers that were on the police cars in Tacoma. So if it is us leftist social justice warriors who are behind Lopez not being allowed to wear his police uniform while doing his videos, then why the are we going after Staben? Granted, Lopez does not specifically say that it is us leftist social justice warriors who got him banned, but he is most definitely trying to suggest a persecution narrative with his use of the I got banned hashtag. But really, there is no persecution at all. He is simply being required to abide by the professional standards that he is supposed to be upholding in his job. Likewise, the Defund the Police campaign is simply holding police departments accountable to what they are supposed to be doing. And the fact that they are holding the police accountable for its failure to do what it should do, which is protect and serve, does not forfeit their right to whatever inadequate protection they were receiving. Just one closing note, though. Some people might bring up the finding of some courts that the police are technically not required to provide protection. But let us again revisit the analogy of the maid. If the board that is reluctant to fire the maid justified their decision by coming up with some obscure reasoning why a maid is technically not obligated to clean, would you buy that? No. Why not? Because if she is not going to clean, there is no need for a maid. Likewise, if the police are not going to protect your community, then you have no need for them either. Granted, I can see reason why the police should not always be expected to succeed in protecting the community. But if the courts claim that they have no obligation to do their darndest best effort to protect your community, then that is quite frankly unacceptable. Granted, I do not know which of those 2 things the court said when they ruled that the police are not obligated to provide protection. As a matter of fact, I have not even adequately fact-checked the claim that they made any such ruling at all. However, if they ruled that the police are not obligated at least to make the best effort to protect and serve, then maybe the police are not the only part of government that needs to be held accountable here. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this video. Please hit the thumbs up button and leave your comment in the comments area below. Make sure that you are subscribed to this channel and that the bell icon is active so as to increase the chance that you receive notifications when I upload new videos to this channel in the future. Share this video with your friends and everyone else, whether by social media or by whatever other means. And until next time, see ya!